Hello, and welcome to this lecture on writing essays created for the course Culture and Literature 1.2. This lecture is created for the School of Education Department of the Rotterdam University of Applied Sciences, and my name is Ahmet Çakyoglu. This crash course in APA-style writing builds on your pre-existing knowledge on essay writing. You have already learned a lot in language skills, and at the beginning of the year you were introduced to APA. Instead of going into all of the details, this lecture will show you how to answer the essay paragraph portion of the weekly assignments. You might want to download the outline worksheet for short essay writing available on Moodle and in the course syllabus. I will refer to it on several occasions throughout this lecture. Today we only have two lecture goals. At the end of this lecture, you will know the basic structure of APA for your final assignment, and you will have acquired tools to start writing for your essay assignments. Now, APA provides guidelines for written reports, so think of term papers, essays, master's theses, doctoral dissertations, journal articles, and more. It is used in a number of fields such as psychology, sociology, nursing, and education to help people communicate clearly with a target audience. In addition to providing format conventions, it helps individuals to correctly give credit to the original source of ideas and information. So why is that important, you might ask? Well, if you want to avoid plagiarism, it is important to learn how to correctly cite your sources. Here's a quick fun fact. APA stands for American Psychological Association. Although APA is integrated in most word processors, always remember, especially looking into the future, that these automated formatting programs tend to make mistakes. You always need to check your writing and formatting before submitting assignments and essays. So what does APA do for us? How does it help us? Well, it provides formatting instructions for items such as running head and page numbers, title page, margins, line spacing, paragraph indentation, in-text citations, section headings, tables, and references. Now, all of these items, presented in a singular format, help readers quickly process information. Also, from a writer's point of view, not having to worry about format options creates room to focus only on the task at hand, which is your writing. Of course, for the purpose of Culture and Literature 1.1, we will not actually go over all of these items. You should have a basic understanding of them already, and if not, you should familiarize yourself with citations before you start working on professional writing, which you will do in year 3 and 4 during Afstuderen and Startbekwaam. For now, just remember that you type your written assignments in Word using Times New Roman .12 double-spaced. If for some reason you cannot use Times New Roman, any other serif font will do. On Moodle, you will be presented with an outline worksheet for essay writing. The sheet is created by David Marler from the University of Applied Sciences, and in this lecture I will show you the steps used in the outline to help you create your first piece of writing for this course. Now, although we haven't yet dealt with A Map of Home by Randa Jarrar, this is the novel that we're going to use in this example. Note that you cannot use the examples in this lecture or in the outline for your own assignment. Of course, remember that that is considered plagiarism. Okay, so use this essay outline to help you organize your ideas, filling your arguments into the form, and once you're completed, you will transform your sentences into a cohesive paragraph and ultimately into more paragraphs as a mini-essay. So before you start, you have to know what the assignment asks you to investigate, research, or analyze. And in this case, the question is, how is A Map of Home a Bildungsroman? You can give a short definition of that term by saying a Bildungsroman is a novel which focuses on the transition from childhood to adulthood. So where does that lead us on the outline? So far, we're just filling in answers to questions very much like you would do on a test. So here you can see the question and then our answer in the second box. So let's get to the next question. This might seem confusing at first, but you have to narrow it down for yourself so that writing your piece actually is more structured. You do not have to worry about examples just yet. Our focus is A Map of Home as a Bildungsroman. which means we should focus on Nidali's growth. What we then could say is that we look into 3 stages. A, we begin with childhood, then B, we focus on adolescent crisis, and C, we end with Nidali making decisions that lead to adulthood. So let's again look at our outline to see how we've put these points in there. Now you're doing great so far. Now of course you cannot present your writing as a question and answer piece. So now we're actually going to see what we can do to work our magic. We're actually going to write our first sentences. And what we're going to do is we're going to combine aspects of question 1 and question 2 to create an introduction on the outline. Simple things can be forgotten, so you need to make sure that you introduce the author with their full name and you also introduce the work by stating the full title. Every other time you refer to the author in your essay, you will only use his or her last name. Last name. Also include your rewrite of the main question and the main points you will make. So questions 1 and 2 again. Look at that. Let's read it. Randa Jarrar's novel A Map of Home is a stereotypical Bildungsroman that focuses on the transition from childhood to adulthood. The story documents the life of young Nidali from her youth in the Middle East to her young adulthood in the US. Jarrar has created a Bildungsroman by focusing on Nidali's childhood, showing the crisis that she goes through as an adolescent, and the novel ends with her entering adulthood. Now what is written here is basically the same as our answers to the question that came earlier. Go ahead and compare them on the outline form to see how a cohesive piece of writing is created here. Let's move on. Now, there's a reason why 3 arguments were listed in the answer to question 2. Usually you want to write a short essay based on 2 or 3 arguments. So let's write down our first argument in the next section of the outline under argument 1. Question A. A Map of Home is a Bildungsroman because it begins with a description of Nidali's childhood. It's simple as that. The question under A1 is what evidence can you find from the book? And now you do need to be specific. It's not much of a research if you just say page 22 of the book shows that Nidali is a kid. That's really not what we're looking for. We're looking for concrete stuff from the book. The book actually states that she is born in Boston in the United States, where she is given her name by her father, who thought she was a boy. The story then continues with her youth in Kuwait, where she lives until the first Gulf War. The entire first section of the book is dedicated to her prepubescent youth. Now remember, this essay is APA, so you will need to actually refer to the book when giving examples. For a novel in the short essay, it's relatively simple. Just state the last name of the author, comma, P, and then the page number. You can see it in the outline or in the presentation in a few seconds. Notice that we only use the last name because we've already used the full name in the introduction. Now the last question under A2 in the form is how does the evidence prove your point to be true? And for this you actually need to use your research skills. The assignment asks you to look into the Bildungsroman. If you are unfamiliar with this concept, you need to familiarize yourself with it. And remember that for research purposes, Wikipedia is almost never a good research tool. It might have some factual information, but as it is a tool that can be edited by whomever wants it, it is not very trustworthy. But let's get back to the question. How does the evidence prove our point to be true? A crucial aspect of a Bildungsroman is that it begins in the early childhood or early adolescence of the main character. So this is something you need to know or look into. And where does that bring us on the outline? So here you have the answers filled in the right columns. What is your first argument? A Map of Home is a Bildungsroman because it begins with a description of Nidali's childhood. What evidence can you find from the book? And finally, how does the evidence prove your point to be true? So we've just filled in the columns. And now we're actually going to go ahead and combine these 3 questions into 3 separate sentences. But to make it cohesive, we actually need to use discourse markers. You should of course know this, but discourse markers are words or phrases like anyway, right, okay, as I say, to begin with, and we use them to connect, organize, and manage what we say or write, or to express attitude. You can look up some of them by clicking on the link in the outline worksheet. So let's see how we can restructure these into one cohesive part. Alright, let's read it out loud. Bildungsromans always begin with the unformed adult or child. A map of home begins with a description of Nidali's childhood. Nidali, the main character, is born in Boston in the United States, where she is given her name by her father, who thought she was a boy. Her name means struggle. The story then continues with her youth in Kuwait, where she lives until the First Gulf War. The entire first section of the book is dedicated to her prepubescent youth. A crucial part of a Bildungsroman is that it begins with the innocence of youth and where the character begins. Gerard does this by giving us the stories from Nidali's childhood. So there you go, we've answered some questions, and combining those answers, we've created a very good introduction with thesis statement, and we even created our first paragraph. And you can actually go ahead and try this for the second and third argument simply by going over the same questions. What is the argument? What evidence can you find in the book? And how does the evidence prove your point to be true? For your conclusion, you pretty much do the same with slightly different questions. You just describe why the topic is important, and you restate your thesis and main points, and then finish off with a creative sentence that proves your point. You can also find this on the outline. Finally, this will leave you with 5 boxes in the outline worksheet that you then can combine to create your essay. This leads you to 2 options. You can either go ahead and put all your arguments in the same paragraph, so you get option 1 with a 3-paragraph essay, so paragraph 1 introduction, paragraph 2 all of your arguments, and your paragraph 3 is your conclusion, or you go with option 2, which is a 5-paragraph essay where you start with your introduction, and then your second, third, and fourth paragraph are your arguments, and you close it down with paragraph 5, your conclusion. And usually you do this with longer essays or essays in which the arguments are not necessarily linked. We have reached the end of this lecture. Take care and see you soon.